Hi, welcome to my booktube channel. I guess I need some kind of intro. Recently, Goodreads dropped the results to the Goodreads Choice Awards, and I don't know if I can say that word, they really annoyed me. So much so that I decided to start a booktube channel, because they're bad. They're really bad. So for those of you who don't hate yourselves enough to check out the Goodreads Choice Awards every single year in the hope that something may have changed, I'm going to run briefly through how it works. So in the first round, Goodreads selects from the mythical ether somewhere 20 books, and people then vote, and the books release kind of between the end of last year all the way through to the date that they released the Goodreads Choice Awards nominees, which is a little bit insane, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. But I really want to talk about it now, but we'll talk about that later. So they drop 20 books in a bunch of different genre categories. I'm going to be focusing on fantasy for this video because I don't read anything else. So anyway, they drop 20 books, then people vote in a round, an initial nominee round, for 10 books. And then once it's whittled down to 10 books, there's a second voting round, and the winner is selected. I don't know where I was standing, and I started another take. So if I've moved randomly, apologies. I'm going to walk you through, firstly, my thoughts after the first 10 nominations came out, and they don't give you voting statistics at that stage, and then after we found out the winner, when they released all of the voting numbers and how many votes each book got. So, after this first initial round, we got 10 books that won, and I was a little bit disappointed, personally, because some of my favourites weren't in there. And that is a travesty. If you've not read The Incandescent yet, I'm saying a lot. If you've not read The Incandescent yet, go and read The Incandescent because it's really good. That is all. The end of video. That is all. And then I'm going to talk about, once they'd released the voting statistics and the winner, my thoughts. And that's when I was like, we need to rant about this because that is insane. Obviously, when you have the public voting for something, they're gonna screw it up. But I think ultimately, what are people thinking? What are people thinking? That's what I want to know. Anyway, I was talking about something. Okay, so when Goodreads had dropped their top 10, I kind of split them into 3 different categorizations in my head. That's what 3 looks like for visual learners. So the first kind of category of books that I identified were books that I genuinely thought were there for the right reasons. A drum roll, please. Yeah, there was one book I actually thought was there for the right reasons. And I will discuss it later on, but The Raven Scholar I have seen quite a bit of hype around, so I feel as though it probably deserves it. I haven't personally read it, but people seem to really like this book. It probably deserved to be in the top 10. The Incandescent should also have been in the top 10. I don't know what the people were thinking. It came last. Go read it. It's really good. Absolutely furious. I'm not supposed to be angry yet. This is the bit where I'm calm. Okay, so this second category of books are the books that I felt like were there maybe because they were read by people who weren't typically going to be reading fantasy books. So these books both fit into, for me, the magical realism category of genres, subgenres, whatever you want to call them. Genres are kind of a crazy mess, but we're going to call them magical realism for the sake of argument. And what I tend to find is that magical realism books are read by non-fantasy readers. While they are still fantasy, I just haven't heard these books talked about in the fantasy book space at all. And I feel like people who kind of go through the Goodreads Choice Awards genre by genre are going to get to the fantasy category, and if they're not typically a fantasy reader, they're going to know these magical realism books and not the more epic high fantasy books, and they're going to therefore vote for these magical realism books. Now maybe they are deserving to be here nonetheless, but that is the reason I think that they have made it into this top 10, despite not being as hyped up as some of these other books like Brigands and Bread Knives, for example, and The Incandescent, which you should read. If you've not read The Incandescent, go read The Incandescent. It's good. It's a really good book. And it came last. No. Unacceptable. Do better, people. People of Goodreads, do better. The third category, and this is kind of the bulk, are books that I thought were there because they had popular authors. Now. Obviously, books with more popular authors are going to sell better. That's how things work in the publishing industry. Now, this does mean that typically these books have more ratings, that more people are reading them, because when R.F. Kuang releases a book, people go, "Oh, I like R.F. Kuang, I'm going to buy the R.F. Kuang book and read it." Same with Brandon Sanderson, obviously, part of a big series. It's going to be popular, and it's going to be, I was going to say it's going to be well received. I've really picked the wrong book from the lineup for that one. But Wind and Truth is good, okay? I will die on this hill. It's not as bad as people think, and it's better than Rhythm of War. Anyway, we're not talking about that. I am, but we're not supposed to be. Now we're going to move on to the next round, which is where they released all of the votes for each round, including the first round, but we won't get into that. All we know is that The Incandescent came last and that it shouldn't have. Because that is such a good book. And you should read The Incandescent. If you take one thing away from this, if you take two things away from this, The Incandescent is really good. People are really, really stupid. So stupid. Not me, though. I am a genius. Okay, so at number 10 we had The River Has Roots. For those of you who are paying a little bit of attention, this is by the same author, or one of the authors who wrote This Is How You Lose the Time War, which was obviously massive. And yeah, I've heard mixed things about this book. I'm not too mad that it's there. Obviously, I think some of the success has come out of it being by a popular author, but it does seem to have been popular in its own right, so fine with it. People voted for it. All good. The rant will come. The rant will come. We're going to skip number 9 for now. We're going to skip number 9 and come back for it, because number 9 was The Raven Scholar. And that was one of the ones I was like, that's fine. The Raven Scholar's okay. We can have that in there. Oh, I was wrong, as it turns out. But, oh, spoilers. Okay, so at 8 we have Watermoon, which was one of the kind of magical realism books. And I'm honestly not surprised this didn't do so well in the second round, because you have less of a split of the genuine fantasy reader vote. I don't want to kind of gatekeep. I know that there are people within the fantasy genre who read and love magical realism, and vice versa. However, I do think that there will be a number of voters who only read general fiction who will have voted for this in both rounds. And yeah, I'm not surprised it didn't do too well. So number 7 is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I don't like Joe Abercrombie. I've read one book by him, to be fair, so I can't really pass judgment. I'm getting all my hot takes out in this video. Whether they will make the cut or not is another matter. But anyway, yeah, 7th, fine. It actually performed commercially a lot less well than I was expecting, even though I saw reasonably good reviews for it, so I'm not surprised it's this low down, but I am surprised. I would have been surprised if you told me at the start of 2025 that it would be this low down, that it's this low down. If you get me. You do. You know what I'm talking about. At number 6 we have The Strength of the Few by James Islington. I enjoyed this book. I liked this book. I don't have a problem with it being... Where are we? 6th? I don't have a problem with it being 6th. However, I do have a problem with why it is 6th. The reason it is 6th is, as we kind of discussed earlier, because it's by a popular author, because it's part of a popular series. This is people who like The Will of the Many going, I like The Will of the Many, I'm going to vote for The Strength of the Few. This book got 30,000 votes. It currently, and this is a few days after the Goodreads Choice Awards came out, and a while after the Goodreads Choice Awards was voted for, it currently has 18,000 ratings. 30,000 votes, 18,000 ratings, which means that at least 12,000 people have voted for a book they haven't read because they enjoyed The Will of the Many. Surely you've read other books on this list. Otherwise, why are you voting? Why are you voting anyway for a book you haven't read? I do say, as much as I hate all people, I do say this is partly Goodreads' fault because they should not be releasing books onto this list that have only just come out, maybe like pre-October books or something. I don't know. I don't work at Amazon. Thank God. Thank God. But this shouldn't really have been a voting option in my view. And it definitely shouldn't have been voted for as much as it was. Okay, at number 5 we have The Sirens. Again, no problems with this. More ratings than votes, which is kind of weirdly what I was looking for at this stage. Which is not great. But anyway, fine. Good. Again, probably a magical realism sway there, but whatever. Whatever, you can't really stop people from doing that without opening up a magical realism category. That's fine. At number 4 we had Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. I'm going to rant about this in a second and I'm going to get very angry. But not yet. Wind and Truth came 3rd, which I know will annoy a lot of people who didn't like Wind and Truth, but I will say it got 50,000 votes and it had over 120,000 ratings. So I think this one is probably fair. Even though there are a lot of people that don't like this book, there are still a lot of people who loved it and will have voted for it. And fair enough. I think it's fine at 3rd. I'm not mad about this one. I'm not going to rant about this one. At number 2 we have Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. And I enjoyed this book well enough, but I don't think it's there for the right reasons. And the reason I say that, again, it comes back to looking at the number of ratings and looking at the number of votes. And it has more votes than ratings, which is absurd. Lots of R.F. Kuang stans are out there voting for this, having not read it. What makes this more absurd is this came out in the summer. So why are people voting for this? If you've not read it by now, clearly you're not that much of an R.F. Kuang fan. I don't understand why you're voting for this book. I don't. Why? Surely, have you not read any of the books in this category? Don't vote. If you've read the other books and not liked them, don't vote. Why are you voting? Stop it. First we have Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. This got about 100,000 votes and has about 125,000 ratings, so I suspect there are some people voting for this that haven't read it. And again, don't do that. Ironically, this is the book I wanted to win. Which is a bit awkward given that I'm making a rant video and complaining about people voting. And I do think it deserved to win, and it is a fantastic book. The Incandescent is also a really good book, though. You should read The Incandescent. You should read The Incandescent. But I'm glad this won, and whether it deserved to win or not, I mean, it won by enough of a margin that I think, yeah, this is a great book. I'm glad it got its flowers, but also I don't like anything about the process that allowed it to win. But I am glad that it resulted in it winning. We're going to go back to Alchemy of Secrets. Stephanie Garber is quite a big author. I've not read her work. It might be great. I don't care. I don't. I might read it. I don't like her fans. And I will tell you that just based on this. let's take a little peek. Let's take a little peek at how many votes it got and how many ratings it got. 48,000 votes, 29,000 ratings, which means that at least 20,000 people have voted for this book having not read it. And I guarantee that half of the people that rated it won't have voted in the Goodreads Choice Awards, because that's how statistics and life and things work. I don't guarantee, but probably. That's absurd. That means there are tens of thousands of people who are voting for this book who have never read it, who just like her other works, and must have not read anything else from the category, or they've read things and enjoyed them and gone, oh, I like this author so much, I'm going to vote for her, even though I read this other book that I liked, which is stupid. These people are stupid. Why are you doing this? Stop voting. I need to work out that I can edit like the volume down so that this bit's not too loud. I hate these people. Why are you doing this? Okay, we're going to finish up with The Raven Scholar, which I said I would come back to. Came 9th. This is the one that, if you remember, if you cast your mind back a couple of minutes, because this video won't be that long, if you cast your mind back, you will remember that The Raven Scholar is the one book I said deserved to be there. No, nothing deserved to be there, nothing. This is another one that had more votes than ratings. Narrowly, but it did. 24,000 votes and 22,000 ratings. I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy. This kind of threw all of my theories out of the window, which also annoyed me because I was like, I'm so smart. I've worked out how the Goodreads Choice Awards work. I worked out why people are voting for these books. Except that one. That one actually deserves to be there. I'm glad that that one's there. No, I was wrong. I'm but a fool. I'm but a fool. But I have a new theory. Don't worry. Don't worry. People vote for the books based on which one they think they will like the most, having not read any of them. That's my theory. I don't like people. Have I said that already? I think I have. I don't like them. Why are you voting for books based on expectations? This is just a broad problem with the Goodreads Choice Awards. People are voting for books they haven't read. Most people haven't read half of the books. I will admit, I'd only read, I think, 8 of the top 20, something like that. And I felt, that's enough to vote. And there is disagreement on how many books you need to have read to vote. I would say probably 3 ideally. If you really loved one of them and you've read 3, you can vote for it. I'll admit in the sci-fi category I'd read 2 and I really, really loved 1, so I voted for it. But I did really love the 1. I am kind of the problem, but I'm not voting for books I haven't read, which is a whole other issue that is way more insane to me, quite frankly. Totally crazy. If you haven't read the book, do not vote for the book. Do not vote for any book if you have not. You don't have an obligation to vote in the Goodreads Choice Awards. And it waters down high quality votes like mine. Admittedly, I did in the second round vote for the winner, but it waters down high quality votes like mine for these random people who haven't read any of the books. I sound like a horrible person right now. But if you haven't read a book, don't vote. I had like an outro thing I wanted to say, and I've totally forgotten what it is. And my mouth is very dry from much anger. Very much anger. If you take away one thing from this video, it's that you should read The Incandescent. And also subscribe. Yes, do that. Subscribe and like and comment. Do I do the weird thing that Books, Beverages and Besties do, where they're like, oh my god, if you like this video, go comment a ghost emoji, because we love ghosts, and then nobody comments a ghost emoji. Their content's really good though. I'll link them below because I'll be honest, they kind of inspired me to start a channel, because I was like, if those clowns can do it, I can do it. Anyway, bye!